the Trails Coordination Management Committee, we're going to sort of use that format and sort of letting people know kind of what typically you'd expect to see. But then we got into a roundtable of what folks think of as priorities for this committee to work on. So that's the list that's up here. Priorities so far, it's community engagement, walking trails on the proposed Upper Charles Trail route, connectivity in general, updates on the Upper Charles Trail, and a short-term action plan. A giant map of current and proposed trails, someone thought was a great idea. And then Chamberlain Extension Trail was mine because that's something that's working on right now. So the idea is to both broad issues, you know, where do we want the town to look like? What do we want the town to look like with money was no object 20 years from now, but then also smaller, more focused things that we obviously have been working on and maybe need to continue working on.
And then we're going to organize them as the next round. So we're going to take them kind of spitballing, and then we're going to refine it and then organize it, put it into a master plan.
Right. And what we were just discussing before we got sidetracked with trying to get the public involved, was how do we do this? Do we do this as going around the room, or do we just let people call out ideas? So on that, just show of hands, who wants to keep going around the table?
Well, I think we should finish up with at least Fran. He's the only one who
Finish up with Fran. He gets a chance to talk, but let's vote on this while we're voting on it. So who wants to keep going around the table? And then who wants to just throw ideas out? Looks like the throw ideas out has
I
it.
just want to make sure no one ends up dominating and everybody gets their vote.
I'll
That's
yell at people. Okay, Brandon, what do you think?
So I put mine up there already. Outward communication, right, both to other town boards, as well as potentially residents, leveraging people like Mary Ellen, to kind of, I think, give people a sense that the two groups are now working together as one. They have shared interests, shared goals and priorities. And then it's a work in progress. But I do think that's an important element that people would want to be aware of.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's what my first thought is on that.
I think that's a great idea.
All right, now I think it's open season.
Open season. Chuck.
We go back to the map.
Mhm.
I just think we need, as a starting point, actually, a map of all the trails in town. And then all the potential trails. And so it's sort of a decision tool to see, because I don't think it's necessarily true that every trail is a good trail. I don't think that's a sort of founding principle here. I think we need to, when people propose trails, if they do, then we need to have a discussion about how they fit into the whole and how it works. I think that's, and I mean, if we're gonna have an outreach to the people in the town, I think we need that tool to show them what's there and what could be there. I mean,
So distill it down to a point.
huh?
Distill it down to a point for your, obviously, giant map of current and proposed trails.
Just a map of all existing trails and potential future trails, and then and that gives us something as a committee to talk about.
Well, summarize the back
What I
piece of
heard
it.
in your point was using that map to assess proposed trails.
Yeah.
Assess proposed trails, and I mean, I would call it,
That's current and proposed.
I would basically call it a vision map.
Okay.
I think so.
And I want to add on to that I think looking at that map with some other key things on it can serve as a tool for us to identify where the proposed trail should be. Not we're just putting a proposed trail because somebody happened to
Right.
donate that land. Where do we really need a trail?
Right.
You know, like to the Southborough train station, for example. So not just proposed, but what jumps out as missing on that map.
I mean, because one of the things in the charge was, as I recall, to have some sort of sense of the importance of the natural environment. And trails, can break up environments. But if it doesn't have a purpose, then it doesn't allow it to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me, so, for the chair, So I think it would be very helpful for us to establish some sort of baseline, I guess we'll call it decision criteria. And examples would be just to help us frame and using the tools we talked about, like the giant map, we say, you know, and then the weightings and how we rate them and what we select will be different based on the purpose of the trail. But one of the criteria could be, what's the purpose, right? Another could be, maybe it's accessibility, maybe it's connectivity, maybe it's demand, maybe, you know, whatever we decide as a group, I think we should have criteria. And then as trails come to us and we evaluate them, at least we have some sort of common ground to at least evaluate them. So we're not pulled in multiple directions and evaluating trails, segments or trails, different criteria. You know what I mean? We should have some sort of consistency of how we make our decisions. I'm not talking about really rigid, but at least some sort of framework. So I would say like a decision-making framework or criteria for a trail selection and prioritization.
Yeah, I think
Fern, I just wanted to say you didn't actually capture the part I said, assess current and proposed and needed, which is different than proposed. The vision map would let us see, hey, there's no trail in this whole part of town. We need that, even though it's not a current or proposed one.
After
So the
proposed.
second point under vision map, yeah, missing trails or needed trails or gaps. Maybe that's a good point, gaps.
and proposed and needed trails. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, but tried to eat you.
Right.
You know what, you'd be alive. I see it, like all wrapped.
Thanks.
All right, other thoughts?
I'm looking at the administrative order that Jack just mentioned. And some of the things that call out to me, there was 8 items. So we talked about enhancing connectivity. They also mentioned the townwide trail network, which alludes to the giant map. We haven't mentioned the town's primary point of contact. But I think that would need to go up. That's
Sorry,
our act as the town's primary point of contact with regards to trail-related issues.
I think formalize that is the key because sort of.
Well, I'm just getting off the idea. They
Yeah,
just- I'm
yeah,
trying to
no, I
keep
agree.
it succinct.
Mhm.
Develop the Upper Charles Trail, which we've got up there. Manage trail development, which goes to Jack's points as, you know, is there a standard approach to managing trail development? Conduct public outreach, which I think we've talked about numerous times already. And then what we haven't talked about is ongoing maintenance. We haven't talked about that. So, you know, you develop a new trail, how do we make sure that it stays the way we want?
Yep.
We haven't talked about public or private grant funding, so that would be on there as well.
Mhm.
And then we talked about, I think
You
it was
might be
Frank.
going too fast, just what
Frank can read that. Yeah. Fran, I can give this to you. You just copy it. I'm just reading.
I think the last one I found there was something about funding.
Yeah, public and private grant funding.
Identify it, identify.
Right, it says identify.
Yeah.
And then the last one, I think, is what Fran said. Town committees, town officials, select board, et cetera.
To add to that, Fran, something that came up today is, preserve the existing trails. So there's about 24 acres, along Center Trail. That's private land. And the private landowner is interested in some development over there. And obviously having a row of condos butting up against the trail that's most heavily used in town is something that would probably get all of us in trouble if we don't pay attention to that. So we need to make sure we're preserved what's there.
Which side of the trail? is
The west side, Center Trail.
Okay, down the
Right.
broad side. Okay.
It is replaced. I'm talking to Katie about, I think we've got something work, but we as a committee need to make sure we're on top of this.
Framework and manage.
Okay.
So they'll be preserved. It's kind of the flip side of what you're suggesting. Sometimes we need a trail. Sound appropriate. But we'll decide it's probably preserving the system.
I got it.
So you got Peter's Preserve?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it might have been said, but I want to sort of call it out in case, is that, we, and maybe what you've said, Brandon, we need to make ourselves known in town. I think we need a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it. Did you capture this one? I didn't see it, but.
Can you, is it?
Got it?
Oh, it's there. I'm sorry, I don't see it.
No. I said, that's a worksheet on the very bottom. It's for the. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna write it down. Oh, is there? Okay.
Okay.
Like that Center Trail doesn't get it to download.
Yeah. So I'll sort of mention the point is that I think we need a little bit of PR and visibility, and then we probably should have an initiative near term to make our presence known, that we
Yeah, so
exist.
that gets exactly what Sean's talking
Yeah.
to. It's,
Yeah, it's kind of what different people, again, different people touched on, it's not necessarily novel. I'm trying to pull it together as more of an action item, immediate action item would be to make our presence known in town, that we exist, maybe a way to contact us, that type of stuff, like establish us as an entity and a message and a theme that we're here to connect to the town and listen to the town type of thing. So some sort of branding, I don't know if it's called branding, but really that kind of messaging I think would be important.
Getting,
Well, I think branding goes to a little bit last time, sort of, I'll say, a look and feel to every thing. And if you do that, I think it gets to, if people can with their phone find what the trail network is and also have a form to us. It's a good way of dealing with people, it's a single point of contact. Now, I don't know how we get there. I would be inclined to try and find some money and just pay someone to brand the trails. And I, from personal experience, I rebranded Fish and Wildlife, and we spent a decade having to go talk about it. And we went out and actually hired someone, and they did it in like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So, those kinds of things.
right, because the discussion goes.
You don't need it, right. And I just think that would go a long way in terms of outreach to people and having people where they could tell us what they're concerned about, what they're not concerned about. And a lot
Well,
of,
so this is kind of running down that tangent a little bit, but Linda's put together a trail sign. Now, that's different from the sign that, for trails that everyone's familiar with, that the national parks uses for their walking people. But having our own is branding, and you put that on, that shows up in an article that goes into the Independent, and people go, that's a trail article. So I think there's, so signage, your uniform signage, I think sort of it's.
well, in connected signage, it has to be, but then when you build that, that's why you need a comprehensive map.
Right.
So I heard the point, a really awesome point, which is consider engaging a third party for our brand. That's what I heard from Jack, overarching, right? Because we'll get success and, faster, which I think is important.
I'm okay, I guess, so every idea is a good idea, but I will have to say, the town has never even engaged anyone for branding. It feels a little excessive for a committee in the town to take that on for itself.
That's what I heard.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
all I'm suggesting is,
It's an idea. I think it's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
Whether we prioritize it, we
Yeah.
can do that later. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
it just seems to me that's because the town hasn't done it, that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. And the other thing is,
No, you're right.
when you also look at the amount of energy available to accomplish things, there are certain things that I know this from personal experience. Everybody has an idea what the sign would look like and what color it should look like and everything else. And you're far better off if you just turn it over to someone who's a Fish and Wildlife. We went to the people, they did Sam Adams, they did Stonyfield Farm. They charged us like 15 grand. They were back in 4 weeks and they said, not only did they give us a new brand, but they gave us a catalog of what all our hats should look like and everything else. It was all there and it was over with. And that's, so in terms of, we could have 100 meetings to talk about this. That's all. It's one of those things that you can actually, you don't have to make a computer, you can go buy one. There are other things you can go buy too.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my point.
so, To your point, you always bring up part of the discussion with about trail centric other committees and groups. HALT, which is Hopkinton Area Land Trust, has a wonderful, wonderful website, which includes what you're talking about. They have an interactive map. And you can pull it up on your phone and you can identify where the trail is. If there's somewhere that we could put their link on our website.
So
Yeah.
To do that, maybe we don't.
I think-
And also, open space is constantly working with HALT so that we have coordinated signage. So that if we do go and do something, we want to bring in those other groups to make sure we're already on the same course.
So coordinate and, you know,
With
leverage some things.
Yeah, with other trail groups in town.
We've also got barcodes on the signs on
Yeah.
properties as well.
There's an awful lot of work that's already been done in that area.
So I'd like to jump so you gave a very specific, we should do this for our website. I'd rather jump that up and say, let's improve our website.
Yeah.
As opposed to the
Yeah,
very
that's on the list too.
Let me jump it up one more.
Yeah.
Click on it and say, what about a digital presence? Website's one aspect.
Yeah.
What about a, spitball,
Mhm.
mobile app, right? You make it interactive. And then could you ever kind of do something that's TikTok buddy communication outreach, right? Doesn't have to be easy. Literally, I can turn my phone around and I can explain, hey, I'm on Center Trail.
That's right.
Right? We got this thing coming up this weekend.
Mhm.
Bring your kids. I mean, that to me is very organic grassroots digital presence. And digital marketing.
Yeah, I would just let them know, but. Just for priorities.
It's like a hierarchy. Digital presence,
Prioritizing,
website,
yeah.
engagement, but.
I do think we have to Linda's, back to Linda's point, give our website some attention and see if we can improve that. I think that we have a lot of stuff to work with that we can
Just good.
improve on, make it user friendly. Yeah, social media. I think from a more practical point of view, it's short term, back to short term. We do have to think about our fiscal year budget because that's coming up.
Which fiscal year, yes.
Yeah, we need to submit something. Elaine
We
put
got
a
30K, yeah,
placeholder.
we got 30K, and that's.
And so, but I thought you said that it might be more, so that just might be in a conversation right now. But we do have a placeholder, so I'm not sure. And also, it was helpful, yearly goals for a committee, kind of help keep you honest and organized, because so much of this is down the road, maybe in 3 or 4 years, 5 years. But if we, after we get all of this brainstorming done, if we can sieve it down to maybe what do we want to do in the next 4 months? What do we want to do in the next 8 months or the next year?
Yeah, well, that's why these sorts of things can be very frustrating because you put a million things up there and then you.
Yeah.
get one of
But
them.
once they're up,
You have to figure out which ones you.
we can sift through them.
And I put, for, you know, I guess, I don't know if it's for connectivity or ether or not, but we should, try to prioritize getting, outside, folks to speak or attend our meeting as representatives either from, demographics within town, from other committees, other, you know, maybe other experts or, you know, other towns with the trails or anything like that. Just, I'm sort of broadening it because it could be anything, but trying to make it a point that we don't sort of just continue to focus inward. We always encourage ourselves and remind ourselves that there's other people out there.
To jump off of what you're saying, I would also suggest the opposite, that a couple of us visit all the different committees and boards in town, get on their agenda. And, you know, when after we get ourselves organized and say, hey, look, this is what might be thinking of doing in the next year. Would you support this? What do you think of that? What are your ideas?
Yep.
You know,
Liaison,
Yes, right.
planning board, sustainable
Committee
green,
needs rarely is, yeah.
So we've got,
advisory, CPC. There are a lot of great people in this town.
School committee.
School committee, yep.
So
Anything?
I'll throw one out there, which is identify the main places in town people would want to use trails to get to.
So points of interest or destinations.
That's what destinations.
I'd say like that, fields, school.
That's one of them, but there's
There,
more.
there's more. The library.
Yeah, that's what the Upper Charles Trail is trying to do.
Southborough train station's a big one.
That would be, if there was a trail, that would make a huge difference.
Well, that's why
Mhm.
the Upper Charles Trail wants to go to the state park, because there's the,
But there's no trail from Hop State Park to the Southborough train station.
oh,
That's,
yes, there is, there's a sidewalk. And the rule is that, you can use existing roads and sidewalks as connectivity pieces on a map.
Okay.
To get.
All right, what,
parking.
Sorry, I don't mean, because maybe we'll lose the point, but then Linda's point was identifying destinations for connection or is identifying destinations.
That trails can get people to.
yes.
So I guess it's just,
If a destination means like schools, athletic fields, restaurants. I don't know.
Yeah, the across Lexington, the across Lexington program where they're accessing the school, connecting schools, open space.
Right. Other, you know, I keep thinking about a tennis court, if that's ever gonna happen on, Lumber Street.
tennis club, you mean?
Yeah. It's still right. Marathon.
I think they used to. So,
Yeah.
once they-
Yeah.
So I want to add parking,
Good point.
whether it's
That's always
parking
good.
plans or parking needs or something, but just that there's sufficient parking.
Identify
That we assess.
potential parking areas.
Yeah. And, when we had signage, we meant we meant trail signs as well as signs getting you places, right?
Well, when I talk about, I mean mostly trail signs, but trail signs that are connected to each other, you know, digitally, so people can understand, you know,
Right, okay.
so. So in other words, if someone comes onto your trail and looks at that sign, then they're gonna know where all the trails are in town. They're gonna know they're going into a trail that's part of a system, which goes back to the map.
Okay.
Should be a link in any case.
Activity. Back to connectivity.
I'll throw in my other favorite, e-bikes.
Oh, yeah.
Top priority,
So which ones?
In my top 10.
Yeah.
is it
Yeah.
to make sure we accommodate e-bikes?
And not over accommodate them, so we don't get run over by, well, you know, the problem.
So my notes were regulations, enforcement, and opportunities for connection.
The big thing there is enforcement. And you do anything with e-bikes and you don't have enforcement, you're headed to trouble.
Yeah.
That dogs are sort of similar in that regard.
Lexington's going through.
Oh, well, the whole DSS system right now is, you know, they have regulations, but they have no enforcement and they have people
They
going
put
20 miles an hour and.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
It's
huge.
surrounding the signs up and.
Maybe just enforcement in general as an issue by itself, because we ran into it with the dog. Because when we tried to put that article in town meeting last year, and, you know, everyone pretty much agrees that, you know,
Education and awareness is a huge thing that we could put out there. How do we educate the public? How do we encourage and get?
Enforcement of the rules, enforcement of the guidelines, or?
really,
No, we don't-
the police, you know, enforcement buy-in. Because like you're enforcing, what do you enforce?
Rules related to
Yeah.
trails.
Rules.
So if you put like e-bikes rules in place, they're no good without buy-in. You put dog, you know, leash laws in place, but they're no good when you've got one part-time animal control officer. It just will not work.
Okay.
Awareness,
So,
education and awareness.
so with that, is there anything here for a priority to make sure we have, select board, buy-in? I mean, just in general for certain things, whether it's, us trying to vet and identify enforcement rules or engagement or something like that. Cause I'm falling short of saying we should engage with the select board periodically and all that stuff. I've sort of not given up on it, but I'm gonna abandon that as policy. But I'm just saying, like, should we make sure that we engage properly with the select board and keep them plugged into?
Yeah, I think select board engagement as its own is somewhat different than just the outward communication.
We don't have an idea.
Because we have to get there may be, not for everything, but there may be things where we need to get their approval and when we hit something like that.
Just on
But
for
they should
maybe
expect
6
it.
months or a year and giving out an update on where things. are.
Right, but also as part of the master plan, when we ultimately, that should be an item too, by the way, if we put a master plan together, part of that will be, there are going to be certain things that we do that we need select board approval for. We're going, hi, select board, we just went and decided that we're going to spend $3 million.
Right. Right. That's kind of what I'm saying. We don't want to take them by surprise. Somewhere, we don't want to be telling them something for the first time and educating them every time.
Right.
They need to be primed, and then when we come to them, it's not going to be a surprise.
Yeah, and I've suggested to several of the select board, that they should get every committee in and do what Jane was talking about, have a, 15-minute, what are you folks working on? What's your priority? Is it going to cost the town? So if it's
The town manager does that once a year. And
They do in May, they
Yeah.
appoint, each select board is assigned so that all the committees and boards have a designated select board person that communicates with them. No, but maybe it's incumbent upon us to reach out.
right, because we did not get that with DCMC.
See, this is different, right? So I
We
think
did that with the Upper Chance Trail. We really tried to engage our select board member.
I
Didn't
think it was
work.
January,
We
February,
tried it.
all the boards would present to Norman of what the plan is, if they need money, and how much money they need. So everything from school committee.
Right, so there's budget, but this is sort of even longer term thinking. And that's-
They're supposed to bring back what we're doing to the select board and keep their select board informed and vice versa. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. So, I don't know how to word this, but I guess I want to say at least one trail in town for everyone. So it's more than accessibility, but I'd like at least a very accessible trail. I'd love a canoe trail. I'd love a bike trail that can take the road bikes, as opposed to mountain bikes. Like, I don't know how else to word it other than something for everyone.
I think that's a great way to put it.
I like it.
What?
I mean, it used to be there were snowmobiles, but, and this time we have a winter that you can almost.
Well, there are a lot of parts of those.
Something for everyone, not everything.
Still a lot of snow.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
The state park.
Yeah, those things all period.
Brand tagline right there.
Yeah, well,
There you go.
Walk into trails, something for everyone.
On a vision statement and a mission statement.
Are we done with this then, or just?
No, it's, no, they're adding, I'm adding that as things we need to,
sorry, what was that one?
vision statement and mission statement.
I do think, obviously, maybe I had my treasure hat on, but I think the point Jane made is still a good one. I still think, even if we feel like we have a given number, I still think we should meet, discuss,
Yeah,
and ask.
we
And if
need,
the answer is no, and that you get if the number's 30, whatever, and that's the case, at least we've gone through the exercise. So I would put, fiscal year, budget.
and also Scott, don't we, when we need to submit the budget, because you're gonna have to do that, don't you have to have certain line items?
Yeah, you have to have some detail.
I do have, you can probably can see it. I do have fiscal budgeting and forecasting.
Right.
Yep, you got it.
And again, I think we need to be doing that. That was actually what I was thinking in general item for next week,
Okay,
including the CPA, right, for 2 weeks from now. So including the CPA funding. Because we've received another letter from them saying, hey, what's going on? So we need to kind of make forward on what we keep, what we don't keep.
can we suggest agenda items to you at some time through?
Sorry, it's very, excuse me, through the chair, it's very tactile, but do we have a mailbox yet? We need one if we don't have.
I think there's one down there.
Physical or email?
Huh? Well, a physical box, because that's where invoices and stuff go to, so I spend another
Yeah,
notification.
you're right, down in the basement.
So we'll need one, so I'll make sure that, I'll take that as the next item, away. Make sure we have one.
Yeah.
I'll take the important things. You don't have to write that down for, I got, Linda's got it in there, it's probably there with,
Oh, no, I,
you know.
All right, what else?
So
Okay.
so I'll add that, sorry.
when we're doing our meetings, at the end of our meetings, this might be a little off, but could the committee members suggest to the chair items to be discussed for the next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, if that's acceptable to you. Very helpful, but, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it might be helpful. When do you have to set the agenda for your, how many hours do you have to post it? About
48.
If maybe
Big
two
business
or 3 days, if, not to give the chair a job, but you just send an email out to people and said, do you have any suggested agenda items?
Yeah, you did that. You just didn't ask for any suggestions, but if I had
It's a
one,
good
I wasn't gonna be shy.
chance that they have something. It's on.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, it should be,
Just
as we-
decided that we were just gonna do the whiteboard. sign.
Right, right. So
incorrect. So we could follow that process.
So,
all right, other priorities. Brass tacks, I mean, I'm, did land acquisition, but thinking along those lines is that the trail through Berry Acres, connecting from Chamberlain Extension down to the Lumber Street Business District.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one we've been working on for a long time, but it ought to be up here.
Oh, I have one, sorry.
So you want to start putting some trails and segments up as.
Yeah,
priorities?
priorities, yeah. Berry Acres.
Well, I think, from my perspective, someone that's new, if you suggest trails that are priorities, like I'd like to see how they fit in the context rather than just talk about them. You may think they're a great idea, I may not, but whatever.
Mhm.
But I want to see how they fit together, not just. Like, I mean, yeah, that's one of the things I think it was, and one of the things I think about is, that I used to deal with a lot is, scouts. They used to come on Ali and decide to build trails. And it's like, we weren't opposed to scouts building trails,
Mhm.
but we didn't want them to decide where they go
Right.
and whatever. So I think you'd always need that context, talk about how does this fit together? Or is this the best thing we should be spending our resources and money on just because someone suggested it?
Mhm.
But not put too fine a point on it, but I think
Yeah,
it's.
no, but I think that gets at sort of some of the decision points we come up with and things like that, but having said that, there are, some things that I think sort of fall into place as things that ought to be worked on. We were discussing this as part of TCMC, kind of what are we looking at big picture? We need a master plan, we need this. And at some point through that discussion, we mentioned, oh, it'd be great. EMC gets a fair bit of use, but we could also put natural materials that kids can climb on in the Hughes Field area. And that would then move those kids potentially over there, give them some other place to go. Is it trail specific? Not really, but sort of. It's an untraded trail for kids. So it's a way of engaging with the community. And we all sat in that room and went, yeah, we got to do that.
It's tough to disagree with that, but I think that I'm sort of where Jack is, like, I don't think it'll delay progress much. It'll take a week or two to say, of course, I'm going to bring up the decision evaluation criteria and
Right.
contextual map. If we have the contextual map and decision criteria, that will automatically fall, I think, based on your description at the top, but it is hard without those two things.
Right.
Stuff
But
like that.
I think it's important to again, delay some of this stuff up because, and you're right? The time we're talking about decisions and, an overall map and kind of how things connect together. This is the perfect time because the weather is not ideal for any of that construction stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, having that in place, to your point, it'll take a lot of time, but.
I personally think we have enough here.
I have
Yeah.
one more big one. So I'd like us to have some data How many people use our trails? How many miles of trails do we have? How many acres do we have? We don't really have that.
A good map will do most of it.
It'll tell us how many.
It's not uses, but it will tell you what you own and where.
Right, but I'd like to have usage.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were talking about, we should also make sure we add who owns the land, who owns the conservation restriction, who holds the conservation, like we should gather that data too.
I think digitizing will help with the
It could probably be true, but it
the metrics and data. If we digitize, we have maps. We can know who's taking the trails and
Does the town have a GIS map with all that information?
yes,
Yeah, so it's a matter of pulling it off.
I tell you, if you get a chance, look up Paul's website.
Well, actually, if you go to the hopkintontrailsclub.com, there's an interactive
Right, I
map
saw the
of
map.
all the trails.
Right.
yeah.
Not all the trails, but most of the trails in
Right.
town. Yeah, it's got more than Hall. Hall only has Hall trails. The
No,
trails
no, it does have. I looked at that tonight.
But
Yeah.
the town's GIS doesn't have, does that have trails on it?
No,
I don't think.
There's some demarcation, but not clearly labeled.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something we actually looked at when we started the committee way back, you ran into problems with it because of the whole private public. Now, was it all trails?
No, it's,
Yeah,
Spin Street.
open street map allows you to designate trails as private versus public, which
Mhm.
we don't want to be directing people onto people's private land.
How many trails in town are actually in jeopardy because of ownership disputes or doing?
It's a small number.
Chuck's got a question or a comment. Mr. Dodgy.
Yeah, Chuck Dodgy. Regarding mapping, townwide mapping of trails, the state's Mass Mapper program now has a layer where a lot of the open street map trails and others are shown much more effectively than they once were. So, and I think that's available now also as a layer on the town's GIS. So there, there certainly is, now, a lot of those trails are not confirmed. A lot are on private land, but the resource of trail maps throughout town is a little more available than it was a few years ago when the TCMC was first looking at it.
And what was
That's
the
all.
first thing you said, Chuck? What was the first thing you said? The blah is available. The what?
The Mass Mapper
Got it.
is the state's GIS, easily available GIS program. And that now has much more of the town's and state's trail network shown on it than it once did.
So we could use that, indicate trails that are private
Yeah,
and trails that are public.
Yeah, the problem is to differentiate, but at
Right.
least it's something that is a start. Again, it would require field checking and some editing, and if we could work with the town GIS folks to use that as a base and then edit as necessary to correct, that'd be one way to get fairly quickly a pretty comprehensive mapping.
Okay.
And your address, just for the record there, Mr. Dodgy?
25, thank you, 25 Sanctuary Lane, Hopkinton.
Technically, you have to ask them.
Yeah.
Do I have to record that? That seems like private info.
part of the record.
Yeah. Should I capture? Chuck, that was a great response.
I captured it in the minutes. I wanted there. Yeah, show them in.
So
Is
it's
it
the
the
state GIS.
Yes.
Chuck, give it to me.
Mass
The Mass Mapper. Mass Mapper.
First map, yeah.
Leveraging Mass Mapper?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds
We
good.
should all become familiar with that, I think. How, like,
So that's
So
based on what I'm hearing and just be thinking out loud, is, I keep going back to the charge from, I assume the select board set this up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so these 8 categories, I think most, if not all of our ideas fall within these 8 categories.
Mhm.
Right? My recommendation is we take these 8 categories, throw on our ideas in those categories, and then prioritize the 8 categories.
What a great way to identify it.
I don't like that
Wow.
because I would rather prioritize the things than the categories.
It was just a structure, I think is what he's talking
I
about.
don't mind structuring it, but I don't want to prioritize the categories.
Oh, I don't think he was saying that.
Oh, I thought.
I think
yeah.
I'm just listening.
I like your idea of putting them into those categories,
Right.
but I don't want to prioritize the categories. I want to prioritize the things within them.
Well, we can do that, but
So the 8 become the buckets.
Yes, that, and I like that.
so those categories. Personally, I think that based on what I'm hearing here, again, it was a brainstorm session, and last meeting, we were all over the place again, right? How do we focus our attention?
Mhm.
So if we say, okay, we have 30 things
Mhm.
that are on prioritization, how do we prioritize those 30?
We let people vote, maybe.
Of 30?
No, I think
Pick your
it's,
top 5, pick your top 8.
I think his idea is great because it gives us an outline. So you list the 8 things and then you take those things and list them under the 8 things.
I agree.
And it
with
gives
that
you a
part.
framework.
Yeah, I agree with
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What-
Yeah, and then I'm also, I want to bubble it up a little bit more and say, okay, well, if we got 6 months, so, well, friends, your term ends in June, right? And I'm not picking on Fran, but I was just like, all right, so
Like the thing to do tonight, so yeah. Bring it on.
so for 4 months, right, we got
Punching bag today.
we got Brian for 4 months. How do we optimize his time? Essentially is what I'm boiling it down to. And that's why. It's just kind of like, all right, we got 4 months, we got,
Let's do something.
yeah, and then that's what I'm saying. It's like, all right, so we prioritize, and I said prioritize the categories, and this is not the lifelong mission of the trail. I'm like, all right, so how do we get to the
Place to
milestones?
start.
Somebody said earlier, said, listen, I think you said set yearly goals.
Yeah,
And I was saying set 4-month goals now.
yeah, I agree. I even agree with that.
Right? So how do you get to that? And I'm like, all right, well, we have 30 ideas. I don't see us practically prioritizing 30. That's all.
So I don't agree that we can't prioritize 30. I think what you can do is have people pick their top 5 or something, top 8, and see where there's a lot of overlap, and those become your top 5 or 8 priorities. I'm not saying we have to have numbers from 1 to 30 that we all agree on, but if we can come up with a top 5 or a top 8 that we do largely agree on, but I don't think you can do it at the category level.
I think you can.
Well, let's give it a try. I mean, we could test the waters, but before we do, I just want to make a comment on something Sean said. Or at least from my perspective, I want everybody else's reaction, the chair. I felt like, I mean, we're a new committee, so last meeting was supposed to be broad.
Yeah.
Get to know each other, because we have to establish, styles of working, who's got what, brings what to the table. Then this meeting is still supposed to be broad, it's supposed to be getting the strategy, and that's why we're meeting twice a month, and they get it narrower, and hopefully in the next 3 or 4 meetings, we're gonna have that focus that we have. If we don't, I agree with the point, but I think by design, we wanted to kind of be broad and unstructured, and then we're getting the structure in place. So that's the process. So the UR here is that starting next week, we've got to prioritize stuff.
We got it. There was a lot of stuff that we've been working on, and to Scott's point, yeah, I'd love to just say, this is what we're working on. I get that's why I was getting into some of the specific stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's sitting there. It's got to go to, there's all these tasks that have to be done. But it's really important for a new committee to kind of go, let's go, so that it's not my ideas, or because it's too easy for, if somebody's been leading for a while, it's too easy to just kind of, okay, we're going to take that path. And that doesn't do a service to the town. What we need is this sort of, this reminds me frankly a lot of when we started the PCMC in terms of some of the stuff we were talking about, mapping. It's like, oh, frick, God, we're back at talking damn mapping. But, you have to.
Well, I think something else too, that we
Well, you
have.
talk about mapping, I guess, because from what my view of it, nothing ever happened with it.
There was stuff that happened with it, but what we ran into was the open space. We can't just, there was no, other than going and hiring somebody to put the map together, which we thought of doing and then got stymied by the town. We couldn't use some of the available stuff because it ended up going on property. And it's like, can't do that. So one thing I wanted to mention here is we heard two things I think that I take away as like short-term things we want to be thinking about is the mapping. But I think broad brush, what I saw with a lot of nods on, yeah, we gotta know where the friggin' trails are. Not so much where they could go, but just what do we have? What's our inventory? And then also, okay, if we're gonna be building trails as part of our job, what's our decision criteria? And that can be also, to your point, are there trails we want to abandon? That aren't doing a service or are having a detriment if they're going through a wildlife corridor area in a way that they shouldn't,
Can I ask a question? What are you doing right now? Are you trying to advocate for two top things? Are you just expanding?
I'm mentioning what I think are two top things and what I'm suggesting we do. And this is sort of getting at your point. I think for the next time, take these 30 things and I'll take them home and try to stick them in the 8 buckets. But as a short term, while we're here, we got sticky pads. Everyone's got pen. Just put 1, 2, take 3 pads, 1, 2, 3, and just walk up, think about this a little bit and put down your 1, 2, 3.
Need priorities?
Your priorities, just off the top of your head right now, just.
All three priorities doesn't mean the altitude, because some are broad, some are narrow. it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
No, doesn't matter. Just
Only 3?
only 3. Absolutely. We're not, we're gonna be doing this stepwise ultimately, but if something falls out that we all kind of agree on, then we shouldn't let wanting to do it stepwise get in the
Do
way.
4.5. I mean, is this the number? That's right.
So rate 1, 2, 3 and
I'm sorry, I don't mean to, we can do that, I just don't see where the process is. What are we gonna do with those 3 and what are we gonna do with the ones?
I know, because there's a lot of important stuff.
Right. So like, where do you see that going?
I see that if everyone, if in looking at this, so when I look at this, I'm like, man, select board engagement's important, but that's gonna be on a schedule. Master plan development, yeah, we absolutely need to do that. I look at,
Swaying people, you're swaying people.
No,
that's okay. We can all, everyone can get up and do the same thing. You're welcome to get up here and do that, but some of this stuff, yearly goals, yeah, it's not really a time sensitive priority
So
thing.
what happens after we put our stuff in there? You're looking to see if we coalesce on a few that can be our short-term goals? Is that what the process is?
Well, it's something that I would then bring forward for the next meeting and ask that question.
Okay,
So is there a time frame? Because you're now putting time frame, because I would say that certain things are more priority near term than long term. So,
Okay, so yeah, so let's put a time frame as things that we feel are near term.
near term, but within the next, yeah.
12 months by December 1.
Well, then we're getting to yearly goals. How about?
No, it doesn't, because it says, what you want, ideally, you want to say, show some short-term wins. And I think if you're gonna try to prioritize this.
I go for 6 months.
Can we try to categorize them right now? It's, to me, if you're walking up there and looking at them and all trying to digest and then doing a 1, 2, 3, I'm gonna be challenged with that.
Okay.
That's gonna, I'd rather, if I'm gonna ask, do you have, I'd rather mull it and not in a 5-minute.
All right,
So my,
so good. Get up there. You're putting the numbers down.
You know what? I
You're
keep
just gonna
going back to.
frequently put- you're gonna bucket them?
Do you have,
Categorize them?
do you have
Yeah,
8
Yeah,
buckets?
let's,
Do you have-
you got the 8?
I think going with the 8 is going to help us give us a framework.
List them off and see what you say. Just.
For someone to read them and then,
Because that's our charge of the 8.
oh, no, no, I don't hear.
You ordered it. Oh, very good.
See you crossing out what we're trying to say. Yeah,
Good.
No, he's giving a 10-page.
oh,
But it's, I would say,
I didn't have it.
oh, we can, I say.
Community engagement.
Sean,
John,
write down.
That's what I was going to do, but Peter stopped me. So
I think if you
That's
wrote down
right.
820, and we could take that.
I'm gonna write down the 8 here.
Thank you.
And then we can put it on that.
Yeah.
So that we're all using the same terminology.
Fine.
Right. It might make it simple for you.
No, it's true, and we have
Yes.
charge. This is what we have from the select there.
Great.
So hold it, you want to write it? No, so this is connectivity. And this is like connectivity trail, townwide trail. And so if we want to abbreviate it, we'll call it CTW. The next one is town's primary point of contact.
That's why sense of where the people come.
Managed trail development. Conduct what?
This is short, managed trail development.
That's good. That's good.
I got it. If you don't understand it, I can try to do a different abbreviation.
No, I think I'm sensing a scribe coming to me.
And
Keep going, gladly.
this is CT safe.
No, UCC, no C at the end.
Right, we're not a committee anymore, we're just Upper Charles Street.
Got it. 5 is outreach, public outreach.
Yep.
6 is maintenance. 7 is funding. And then 8 is select board committees. All Trails
Yeah.
Commit Club, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
All right?
I think that's great, because now we can take those things and stick them into these different categories. It will help us, it will help us,
So community engagement,
it's right there, it's under public outreach.
PO number 5.
I would use 5, I would just use 5, yeah.
walking trails on proposed UTC trails.
That's the UCT 4.
Yeah.
Connectivity. 1. Thanks. Oh. Updates the UC trail. So updates, I'm thinking it's either gonna be 4.
Well, that goes under 4, because it's part of it.
Yeah.
Is it 8?
Yeah, that's what.
Or 5. It's either,
It's 4, I think.
it's
I
4
thought
or
it's
5.
4.
I'm,
Yeah.
Okay, 5. No, I think it's.
No, that's a meeting update. It's not public update.
yeah, I'm. Public outreach is more.
Because of,
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm
I mean, it
thinking,
could be both. It could be both.
No,
well, it needs,
It was meant for project updates
right,
within us.
no, I agree, it's 4.
that was an agenda.
giant map.
Okay, that could be,
1.
3, managed.
It could be also a giant.
Yeah, one,
map, I think,
Is 1 or 3.
Public outreach.
Yeah,
right.
see, I wanted-
Because I think of it as really.
Yeah, 1, 3, and 5.
okay, thanks. I was gonna ask if you could have multiple labels. Thanks.
Yeah.
Chamberlain Extension.
okay, is it, was that, that's not
Yeah.
quite maintenance yet, is it, but it's probably.
Parking access or access needs.
Assess needs,
Managed development.
yeah, it is. 3.
Managed trail, number 3, managed trail development.
E-bike enforcement.
That would again be managed trail development, we're managing it.
No,
It's not managing development, it's actually on,
It's connectivity.
No,
it's,
it's under safety.
All right, so e-bikes out. Just cross it off.
no, no,
Well,
no, I think there's a new one. I think there is an enforcement or
It
something
could
else.
be part of public outreach too, because we need to do
I feel like maybe
education.
she warning it an item. I think that's a new item that came up, which is our, I don't know if it's, rules and regs or enforcement or something in there.
Wouldn't that be,
Could be maintenance.
But it's not.
wouldn't that be managing the trails?
I'm thinking managing.
Yeah.
Well,
Close.
I think
It's part of
to me it's managing the development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
If we
would say,
expand it, then
What is it maintaining?
I know.
What one for maintaining?
yeah, but it's management. It's
Oh,
maintaining.
maintenance, six versus three.
But I don't think it quite falls in maintenance, it sort of falls in management.
And if we brought in maintenance, no, it falls into maintenance, because why do you maintain trails? You maintain trails so that they're used and usable by the residents. And if e-bikes are a problem, the trails are not
So
being
we put,
maintained.
I'll just put 3 and 6.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's part of
So
it.
land acquisition,
Great.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a question about 3? Because I saw that and read it in the charter, the charge I remember. Thank you. Is more about the actual construction.
Yeah.
Was the
We
item.
could read it either way, because I
But
look at
I thought that's how they
management as
said it
managing.
in the description. Because it was, I thought it was in the context of the construction and build out for 3. As long as we say that.
I don't think we don't have to go.
We don't have to
No,
go
I-
into
I-
that.
I'm more not that exercise. I'm more just clarifying, making sure that we're comprehensive enough in what our charge is, because I don't want to shoehorn something and have.
Manage with a capital M, so that you could have multiple areas under the management.
Yeah.
You have to manage your people.
It's it's the development word that I'm more having it.
Well, we could,
If you want to say
break
just
that.
manage, development and maintenance
You
for
could
ongoing
have
management. that's fine.
management A, management B, different types, you know,
Sorry.
that's,
Anyways, if we could change 3 to develop and manage.
Yeah.
Does that work?
ask Sean.
Or manage and develop.
Find it.
Yeah,
I think 4.
We don't.
You manage it.
Well, 6 was management, operations, maintenance, annual budget, budget include
Oh, so that's
permitting,
broader.
design.
Okay, so there's 6.
Construction of trails.
Okay, so 6 is more than that. Perfect. Thank you. That
Yep.
satisfies my concern. Thank you.
Okay, so
Pass that around, you wanna,
so hold on, if that's the case, this is development trails then?
No, 6 is.
I think 6 is more just kind of what we have and just keeping them going.
Forest development, 3 or 4.
4 is, development, 4 is development,
Yeah, manage, 4 is manage trail development to respect the natural.
Oh,
environment. So
hold on, okay, so now we're gonna be confused.
Yeah.
Do we have to stick with these numbers for right?
Right, right.
Chart will be.
we
Yeah.
can clean it up
Yeah.
later
Yeah.
as we go along.
Yeah.
We're getting somewhere.
Enforcement, trail rules, education and awareness.
That again is
Number 2, I would vote for the primary point of contact. Thoughts?
No.
No?
I think it.
I would agree.
No,
I
again.
think I also 6.
I think it's
6 or 5,
5 goes in there.
education and awareness to me is
Yeah.
outreach.
Right. Right, but I think also 6, because you're doing it as part of managing,
Yeah, 2, 5, 6.
maintaining, yeah.
A select board engagement,
Multiple.
master plan development. That's literally in here.
That's under 6, I thought you just read. Or no?
No,
Yeah, is it
Um,
one?
I think it's 1. Yeah,
Conduct a
1.
planning process and include, yeah.
1. Something for everyone. I think that will go to 1 as well.
I think there's a 2.
One of three on the.
I like 2 on that too, because something for everyone is a primary point of contact.
Yeah,
No?
And 5, public
That's
outreach.
what that meant. Primary point of contact just meant that.
Well, the branding is public outreach,
Mhm.
right? So the branding component, public outreach, and then something for everyone says, listen, we make sure that all trails are available. Well, not all trails. There's a trail for everybody that they can use and they know about. We get the branding.
20-year vision.
What's that?
And that's tomorrow, but that's a 20-year vision. Yes.
All right. So do we want to do 1 and 5?
that sounds
Yeah.
good.
Vision statement, mission statement. That's 1. Data,
I think that's one also.
Is that?
1 and
6?
3 maybe.
Yeah.
It's
And
maybe
5
all.
is- 5 is public outreach.
Because 6 had funding or substantiate.
It did.
I mean, you want to justify the trails and decisions under 6 is broader than maintenance.
It's a lot of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's,
What do you want?
maybe we have an other category. Number 9 is other.
No, I think it.
Find us in for it. Yeah, exactly.
outer communication, town boards liaisons, that's 8.
Oh,
Vision
but residence is 5, because that's,
Oh, outreach. So that's 8 and 5.
Yeah.
Vision map.
and
Vision
then
map,
branding is 5.
5. So that falls under like, if we break this down into tiers, yeah, 8 and 5 is included. Vision map, assess current and proposed, missing and proposed trails,
That's one.
1. All right, establish baseline decision, criteria, framework, manage trail development prioritization.
I'm confused. The way I heard 6 was decisioning on what we're selecting.
Anything on 6?
Sure. Yeah. Funding was 7, that's easy. Yeah. Preserve existing trails that fall under maintenance.
Leverage mass mapper,
One.
1.
Signage, uniform connected to others.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Maintenance.
Yeah, definitely.
6, I think mapping is also public, the signage is public outreach.
Yeah.
Coordinate with other trail groups.
8,
And 8,
maybe.
prioritize digital website.
Public outreach.
And 8, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, why 8?
I thought it was communication. Yeah, just fine.
Budgeting, forecasting.
I'm sure that the
Funding, data,
7, yep.
who knows who wrote it.
yearly goals. I think that falls under 1, yeah.
Maintenance.
Yeah, but really, it's all, I mean, you know, each of those, we should be each year figuring out where we are in each of these pieces.
Get outside speakers.
Public outreach 5.
And identify destinations.
1.
Planning.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, we didn't do establish baseline decision criteria, common ground framework, manage trail and development and prioritization. What numbers that can fall under?
1 or 3, maybe? That's a-
Well, 1 does say to provide a sounding board, but also says seek solutions, work with residents to common problems, undertake part to involve development of new trails, living upgrades. I don't know.
1 and 3,
Yeah, that's a good.
So 3 is Upper Charles, by the way.
Well, yeah, but we're gonna,
I know, no.
Oh, you're transporting.
Yeah, I mixed one.
we'll fix it up later.
There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Clarity.
And Fran,
Yeah, no, I think it provides a framework. It's moved forward.
Perfect. Does anybody have a dart?
I think one thing it does is it makes sure that the things we're talking about all fall in our charge.
Mhm.
And that's an important thing, that we didn't bring up stuff here that really wasn't in the charge and we're covering the charge. So I think that's a good thing.
I agree with Linda. And then also the way I'm thinking about it is I don't want to do it tonight. After Peter is going to put this together with the numbers and bucket them, you're going to have a feeling, me personally, I'm going to have a feeling, all right, this is where I think the committee should focus their attention. Right? And not going to say, oh, this is the most important of all these 30. It's like generally you're going to say, all right, that's where I think we need to focus. And then we say, all right, how do we want to prioritize?
So are you thinking that, and it's all preferences, art and science involved here. Are you thinking that you may vote towards 1 of the 8 or 2 of the 8 or 3 of the 8? Because I think we need to, like, there's going to be aspects of outreach that will lead to decision, that will lead to, you know,
I think we're going to do.
so I think there's things within there. So I personally will vote at the sub level because I think we need to move the ball forward.
I guess we
More
have
than
to
just-
vote to make everybody happy.
I mean, again, I'm not trying to sway people. I'm just making sure that if we come up with a different, we might want to just think of a consistent
I think,
method, then I'll go with whatever the group thinks.
I think we are going to do all. I think we're going to do items in all 8 categories, honestly. All right, I think the committee's going to do that, right? But I'm thinking too, is that we got 4 months before the next rotation of folks come in. I think we do want to get out with it before the summer to say, this is our action plan and what do we want to do?
Yeah.
Right?
How we gonna
And
do
so
that?
personally, that's my thinking of prioritization, like how do we get this all out there and prioritize it? And where does that fall and which category?
So I don't want to be swayed so much by Fran's leaving in 4 months. Like that's.
It's an arbitrary date. It's an arbitrary date.
Well, yeah.
No, it's like.
Can I put,
Yeah.
can I put planning, Fred's going to part of this?
No, I like the idea of focusing on some short-term goals.
Yes.
But I don't want to lose this opportunity where we've jumped up to a high level to also not prioritize those long-term things.
Mhm.
So I'd almost rather see us have two sets of priorities, long-term and short-term,
Oh,
and not by category. But by
No, I think,
Yellow and blue.
They're not binary.
no, absolutely not. No, it's just, like I said, personally, I was speaking on behalf of myself, not what I think the committee should do, is what my recommendation would be. Is that I'm gonna feel, when I look at these, I'm like, all right, so where do I think we need to focus our attentions in general?
Yeah.
And that's how I'm gonna decide whether something is on a priority or not. Say, oh, do we want to work on X? Like, no, because generally I think we need to do this instead.
But whichever the three personalities, what these people.
Is that everything we put in the
Three
minutes?
personalities where you're speaking on behalf of.
Yeah.
The fourth one.
Oh, there's a fourth one?
So,
So good answer.
do we know what, so Peter, or if you want me to,
No, I'll.
okay, is gonna take this and do the categories and put the things in the categories and send it out to us. And then what are we gonna do next when we come back next with it?
I think you essentially vote, right? Determine, it's like voting, use that term loosely, like,
Right.
we're all gonna make our own individual decision. Like Sean's-
On what though? That's the part I'm asking.
Well, I guess the question becomes, is it gonna be the 8 buckets or is it the individual?
And then time frame,
Yeah, I think that.
Right.
right?
The timeframe.
Well, maybe that's the other thing too, is that maybe we take these in the categories and then, as you suggested earlier, we put on a time, like what's the time limit
On these particular items.
on these particular items? Yeah, that's right.
If we have, with a list under the categories, then we can go down and decide, oh, we can do this in the first month, we can do that. The third
Not
month.
when we do it, how long it's gonna take.
Yeah.
Right, that's good.
And another thing is ongoing. Like the Upper Charles Trail is gonna be ongoing forever,
Yeah.
just as some other things.
Well, that's,
Forever.
So let's board engagement is one that's ongoing. So I think the question there is, how important is it we do it soon? Like, is it important we do that in a month, in 6 months, in 2 years? You know? So like, I'm just picking an example. Select board engagement would be an ongoing thing. So when you think about time frame, is it, that's something we really should do within 6 months? Or that's something we really should do within 2 years? Like, that's how I would address time frame on a question like that. Because it's like that's just, I'm just like throwing that out there as an example.
So you bring up an interesting point in my mind. One of the, especially there's a couple of things, the longer term things, select board interaction, financial planning, they're gonna go on in perpetuity,
Mhm.
right? But we don't have framework around each of those. So my thought would be, for those longer term ones, what is that framework? Do we commit select board? Is it bi-monthly? We get an alliance calendar?
Coming up with it.
And then it's more coming on a little bit, and that's somewhat tactical.
Mhm.
But for those longer term ones, that's kind of, I think, what we need, framework and a tactical framework for something like that. Whereas maybe Sean will look at one of these, hey, we can get this done. It might take us 4 months. We might start at day one, or we might start that 4-month project, 4 months down the road. So just to kind of like help us prioritize something both shorter term and long term, and where do we put our resources? That's the other thing, is where are we going to kind of allocate our resources at our times?
I agree.
Yeah.
So I think I'm on board with doing the exercise. I don't know if we exactly figured out how we do it, but one of the concerns would be, obviously, for one of my pet items that I put up there is decision-making criteria and framework. If everybody's saying, well, we need community outreach, and then we have 3 votes, and by the nature of 9 people, 27, and metrics and or whatever decision-making criteria doesn't make the top priority list, doesn't make the cut, I think we're gonna be cutting up our nose to spite our face, because, you know what I mean? So I just think we have apples and oranges and vegetables, and I just think what my 2 cents would be to continue with the organization for next meeting. And I don't want to delay the process any more than anybody else does, but I think what we should do at that point is to say, within these categories, because we talked about drilling down a little bit, what are some actionable items that we can think of associated with those? And then based on timeframes, value that we get from them and stuff like that, then we can have an action plan that results out of that discussion. So the outcome would be, as a group, determining actionability.
Yeah.
Based on, what could we start actioning now? And what do we put on future agendas? We could sort of cascade that way. That would be
I like that
my
idea.
thinking, would be just to have a little bit, again, if anybody knows me at work and at home, I'm not a guy that likes to delay things, but I'm thinking just one more exercise of fleshing it out a little bit. And then again, thinking in the terms of where you're at, I think is that, Sean, is actionability.
Yeah, no, that's right.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But let's get this organized.
Yeah.
So I think that's one approach. I'll throw out another one, and I don't know that it's any better. If I looked at these, I might say community engagement is something that we need to be working on within the next 6 months. Blocking the trails of the proposed Upper Charles Trail, maybe not within 6 months, but within a year. Like if I put a time frame on those, that sort of is priority without priority,
Yeah.
Like, and that would sort of lens, because I don't know. So that's another
Yeah,
approach.
no, it's interesting, right? Because I think we might be on the same page, because when I get to qualify my actionability term, is what are the most immediate actions? As I said, the cascading,
Mhm.
it starts to turn into planning our next 6 or 7 agendas, which to your point, money outreach you think is important. Okay, what should we be doing right now? And it could play into public outreach and engagement, maybe a little bit of branding. Okay, we have 3 things or 1 thing that we could do starting next week. Who wants to do it?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That's what I was kind of thinking. So it is timeframe based
There's
actionability.
no numbers on the time frame, but we call
Yeah.
them short-term, medium-term, longer-term, really.
Or when can we, what can we do and when?
Mhm.
When, what value would we get?
Yeah,
Orange.
Yeah, ultimately, we're gonna have to come up with action items.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so it just sort of
That's the only way.
gets us a little bit more there, but like I said, action, what can we get? What's the value we can get as soon as we can? And what actions can we take to do that? And then who could do those?
To bring that up.
Criteria.
Just ready to make people work now.
What are those criteria?
I'm just
Scott?
kidding.
Also, criteria let's mention, those they weren't bad, right? In terms of identifying, what's the bang for the buck? Quantify the benefit, right? How long is it gonna take? Okay. And then I think we each go through the exercise. It's not gonna take that long, but we can almost kind of look at these individually. If you set them out almost in a spreadsheet. Easier. And we can just kind of identify where our
Yeah, spreadsheet would work.
Yeah, like there's incremental steps or maybe immediate steps we could take on this map. Right? That could be something that we get action on. Maybe we're not going to get done in a week, but at least we make progress and we get the initial cut or whatever, you know what I mean?
And then come up
Like,
with.
what can we
some sort
get
of
to start getting us?
process.
So we're making progress, but also being able to make decisions and get to some of the points of things in the pipeline. Work through them, because we actually have to, we have trails out there.
because in theory, if you're able to knock some holes off in 4 months, then these are gonna fall off. Right? If you complete them and then
Yeah.
more the longer term ones, we got the framework in place that's showing kind of out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
And you also have current projects that are underway
Mhm.
that would also be added to this list.
That's what I'm saying, like, we can't lose sight of, and Peter's point is like, we have some things that are staring us in the face, we need to get going, right? So we can't lose sight of that as well. So that kind of plays into the action plan that might, by doing those, might feed into some of these.
So what I'm hearing is we're gonna take this list, Peter's going to organize it, get it
Probably
into some
spreadsheet.
sort of spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Then we could come back and do the next steps by putting timeframes on them or
I guess actionability, like, you
actionability.
could call it, near-term actions that can get near-term results. I don't know how we're
Right,
gonna do it.
and we're gonna have, at that point, we're gonna have to drill down. So for example, community engagement, a big item. There's a lot of pieces.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
could probably start.
What's the next first thing?
Yeah, but some of those are gonna be long term, and some of them are gonna be near term, so. But, I think for the next meeting, we can at least,
So do you foresee the next meeting being
So you're gonna bring your.
similar to this in that we're just gonna take this one step further? Do you
I
think
think-
that there will be any other
there'll be more.
item to talk about?
Yeah,
Then-
I think that'll take less time than this. And, hopefully. Or we just do take less time than this. That's
If
all.
we're drilling in, it's gonna take more time.
It may take more, but we only have to do one or a couple or, we take two.
Well, I think
Next
you might
one.
want to put on the budget for next meeting, even if it's just
Yeah.
fine for
We
next.
have to do something on the budget,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so I think there's some things and then some of the update as to where we are with stuff. But-
Yeah, I'd like to give an update on the Upper Charles Trail, just so that, because there are some time sensitive things there that I think the committee members should be, at least be aware of,
Mhm.
so that you can have the information to make a decision
Mhm.
to move forward or not.
Yep.
That wouldn't take long.
Yeah, and we, to get some of that information too.
I guess one thing I'd also like to say is having as much information before the meeting as possible can help make the meeting shorter. So if we had the spreadsheet and had a chance to look at it, at least a few days before, if we had the updates in the agenda,
Mhm.
so we're reading them, not just hearing them and digesting them here for the reason, that's just my preference. Maybe other people don't feel that way, but,
No, that's fair.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think we have a plan.
Do you have a clear
I may
agenda?
not be here at the next meeting.
You're traveling to California.
No, I've just been to California.
Oh, sorry.
I'm having a medical procedure on Monday, so my assumption is I'll be fine. But no, that's,
We'll bring it to you. Where are you gonna be?
huh?
We'll have a meeting in that room.
No.
Well, good luck.
No, it was nice though.
I know.
I was on the beach on Sunday. It was 75 degrees.
So do we want to
It's cold here.
articulate, because
Squishy.
we said to ourselves, the first meeting, we weren't going to overstack agendas, so.
Right.
What's the proposed agenda items and kind of approximate time allotments?
I don't have the. Good one. In there here, but, yeah. So next meeting, I had listed already budget, particularly CPA funding. We need to vote to keep and don't. But, in addition, some of these items, so prove any invoices or purchases. I don't think we've got any of those at this point, so, we might actually have to say.
Excuse me, to the chair, should we vote that we could sign without a vote every time for an invoice next meeting?
As long as it's in the minutes, I think you can do it without.
Well, I know we'd have to vote as a committee.
They got a new form that
Oh, yeah,
requires multiple signatures.
Well, there's Shannon, if it's CPC, but the treasurer can sign and
The treasurer, yes, CPC is easy.
Yeah.
It's other things.
Yeah.
It's our budget. that-
Okay, well, anyways, we can talk about that,
Yeah.
but if that will streamline us, we have to vote every time we have an invoice, that would help. So,
I agree.
Yeah,
we can talk
most of,
about
but for coming out of the budget, I think you need to do the vote and you need to, we did a,
we don't.
This is why a copy of the minutes is what-
we did a, up to, the chair was authorized to spend up to 500 without getting approval and then would get approval at the subsequent meeting. So for example, I'm buying lumber, Chuck Dotchie says he needs, some lumber for something. I can get him that and then come to the next meeting and say, hey, we spend $500.
Sorry, I agree. There's voting on expenditure, but I'm talking about voting on an invoice, like you have to bring an invoice to a meeting and say, does everybody approve this invoice?
Yeah, they require multiple signatures now. So it's just the accounting practice.
Because I'm on the HSC as the treasurer and I'm voting to do that, so we don't have to do it. I fill out the
No,
form.
you can.
We should talk offline and discuss.
So-
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
June
All right.
does.
Okay, so I think, we'll talk about this. We'll fill out kind of where we are with regard to, previous projects that are sort of ongoing. So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just on topic. We're talking about the previously awarded funding, or we're gonna expand the list to other projects?
It includes projects that are also, I like the sign project that Linda's
Okay,
been working on, at least you know where the status of that is. I mean, you saw the picture last time, but
Yep.
you know, we have been doing outreach and where we are with that, because I think, you know, we all agree that's an important piece, but let's not start fresh, but let's start from where we are.
Just clarification question to the chair. We're gonna take, right, you're gonna kind of create the buckets that Sean, right, the 8 buckets, and then we're gonna prioritize overall, not within the bucket, our overall top 5 or 3.
I thought it was within each
Those-
bucket.
Okay, within the bucket, and then just all in the bucket, do the, okay.
Mhm.
So we're gonna wait for your
I'm sorry,
spreadsheet to
is it
come out
what?
first.
So we're gonna, help me out, Sean, we're gonna, within each of the buckets, where they're falling here, Peter's gonna send out all the priorities.
Right.
And then we're gonna rank within that bucket where each of those priorities fall.
So you would have a 1 within the
Number 1 bucket.
connectivity bucket. You'd have a number 1 within the PCP.
Well, that's what I'm gonna ask you clarity.
Right, I thought
Right.
that's what you just said. So I was clarifying what you were,
I'm looking around for head nods. and it looks-
is that what we're
I
doing?
think that will
Yeah.
work.
Okay.
And it's not gonna be as easy as that when we get down to brass tacks of actually doing it, because like I said, with community engagement as a example, we're already partway doing it. There's a lot of components of that, you know,
Yeah.
But I think it helps, I think it helps focus our conversations again on the actionability part.
exactly.
We can only focus, if next meeting after that, we focus on the top. See, within us, the 8 buckets, it just gives us a little bit more focus. I don't know.
Why is it having some action items for the one that are more nebulous? Like connectivity to me is just too nebulous. And there's nothing actionable there. I mean,
Right.
it could be a litany of things.
It's what you define it to be.
Right.
Well, at least I know.
Well, connectivity is concept.
Yeah.
Right. And then,
And we won't.
You can apply that concept to when you approve new trails.
Right.
How does this, you know, when you have, it's part of your criteria.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really not an item, it's a concept.
Right. And so what are the items in that concept?
You'll know it when you see it.
No.
It's like pornography.
I got the court reference. I got the court reference.
Just, you know,
Just popped in.
alrighty,
That's helpful.
so,
What's this?
so does that seem reasonable? Anyone else have any agenda, thoughts on agenda items?
You were
Any
gonna,
things-
I don't know, did you remember also project updates?
Project
And we're
updates.
gonna try to, have a list of current projects. I can try to.
Yep.
Pull something together for you. On a spreadsheet.
I know we said we didn't have an immediate need to do it, but CPC is still looking for us to sign off on these 8 items.
Yes. Yeah, we have an immediate need. I got the letter from Ken, last week. So I said we have decisions.
Sorry, CPC? No, I just read the email.
Yeah.
Yeah, a longer letter. see.
Follow up.
Sure.
All right,
So for next meeting, we're not gonna call for new topics because we have a pretty full agenda.
Correct.
James' point, but maybe at some point, there will be a call for topic meeting. This one's pretty set.
To
Do we need to do anything for the next meeting?
Yeah, we have to vote.
Or not, or do you want to hold off?
no, if you've got an update, yeah, let's have that
And if you
information.
can provide some of
Yeah.
it in advance, that would be
Okay.
helpful. Just saves time.
I'm all for single term.
Right,
Dan's name,
do we have a motion?
There's a motion in a second.
We don't know what our next meeting is, do we?
Yeah.
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks, 26.
It's in the minutes.
Outside of that.
But after that,
It's
it's,
the first 4 or 5.
we have 2
Okay,
months.
we have a motion on the table. We have a second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.
You had a question.
Well, my question is on Trails Club. It's not gonna overlap in March.
It is in March.